Great. Morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for the intro. So yes, I'm going to be talking about a tangential application of conversational AI in interactive entertainment, in particular in games, and how I see that evolving into other areas. So a little outline. First of all, talk a little bit about voice. We've heard quite a bit about voice, but voice and conversational AI in games and what I see that as. Give you a little example of a game. Talk about some of the things that I've learned in the process of prototyping this, how we might work with game developers to apply this in more context and more interactive entertainment. I'd like to talk a bit about sort of data privacy and voice, and then a little bit about the future. So a quick poll, if I may. Who here has played a smart speaker game? So an interactive story or a quiz or something like that? Show your hands. So maybe 20% or so. And has anyone here spoken to a character in a mainstream game? So either on a console, maybe on your phone, but outside of the smart speaker domain? Doesn't look like it. So I think this is an area that I think is going to grow over the next year or two. And I think, in fact, we're already quite familiar with speaking to characters on smart speakers. And this will start to pervade what I would consider to be mainstream gaming. So a bit about me. Thank you for the background. So really, I guess I have kind of three remits. Software development is my background, but I'm also quite product focused, and I'm the lead for running this project. And through all my work, I've really, over the years, I've really been focused on trying to make technology work for people and not the other way around. And what I mean by that is be very user focused, be very considerate towards the user or the player, and try and avoid them having to work to make the technology usable in their instance. I'm creatively driven. I'm a builder, a maker, and I'm based down in the southwest in the UK. So what do I mean by voice in this context? What I really mean, as indicated, is speaking to a character using natural language and receiving some kind of intelligent response. So this might be through a headset that you already own, the player already owns on a console. It might be through controllers. PlayStation 5 controllers all have mics in them, as do various other devices that are now out there. Remote controls, obviously, mobile device perhaps. And I see this as voice input, but also voice output, natural language generation, either using pre-recorded and/or a mix of pre-recorded and computer-generated speech, so the character talking back to the player. And I see this as a new way of interacting with entertainment that, importantly, kind of goes beyond commands and making choices. It's more of a conversation. So why voice for games and screen? Well, technology is starting to make this possible. We've seen numerous examples, actually, over the last 36 hours or so. And this is making it possible to interact with characters in new ways. Voice is very accessible. That's also been mentioned a couple of times. And it's a very natural way of communicating what's on our mind, what we think, what we want to do in the game. It's independent of hands-on controllers. We can be using the controller to move around an environment and speaking to either characters in that environment or speaking to the game itself, if that's what we wish, or other things. And it doesn't require eyes on the screen all the time. So multimodal experiences may be starting a game on a TV, but continuing it in the car, for instance. Finally, voice for games, I think, has the potential to bring new players into some existing or familiar common experiences in games. For instance, players that might not want to use a controller or aren't able to use a controller. And linked to that, I think it has the potential to create deeper engagement in in the games we already play through the interactions with the characters. So that's voice in gaming. How this started for me, I was looking at exploring conversational AI and voice actually for an enterprise project for event management. And the pandemic hit, and events, you probably are all familiar with this, kind of pretty much halted for a year or so. And this did impact the work that I was doing. And I think, I wanted to try and make something of the time I had available then. And I started to explore how could I apply what I'd learned in the more kind of creative entertainment space. And so I prototyped a game. It's called Spaceport Alpha. And I'm not a game developer, designer, but really this was an opportunity for me to bring together some of the things that I've experienced in games myself and have a go at creating them. And this is audio only. There were two main reasons for that. One was I actually wanted to deliberately make a game that was a break from the screen but felt a little bit more like a traditional game. And two, I don't have graphics skills, and I was doing this with some help, but it wasn't possible to create a 3D world. That would have meant I couldn't focus on, for instance, trying to integrate conversational AI. So I had to pick and choose what I could do with my time. So let me set the scene. We're 20 or so years in the future, 2040s, 2050s. Freddie, who's the character you're going to hear me speaking to, has arrived at a departure lounge at a London spaceport. So we have occasional rockets now going up to the moon. There's some research bases on the moon. And Freddie is a bit rogue. He needs to find a way to get this pocket supercomputer, Alvin, up to a contact on the moon. He's going to have to try and get through security. He's going to have to try and get a ticket. These tickets are expensive. It's quite an exclusive thing to get on this rocket. And as the player, you're going to try and guide him through conversation, and you're going to sort of have some back and forth. And I sort of see this as being over kind of comlink, some kind of secure link on your phone or something. So this was the story I came up with. So with any luck, we join Freddie as he's turning up to the spaceport.
Hi, it's Freddie. Can you hear me?
Hi, Freddie. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm nearly at the spaceport. I have Alvin and a few other things in my rucksack, just pulling up now. Well, I made it. I'm here. What a nightmare those last few days were. That didn't say much, but stressed I must get his dear Alvin through security undetected. I'm at your disposal. Where do you think we should start?
Can you tell me more about Alvin?
Apparently it is a powerful computer. Looks a bit like a small dumbbell from the gym.
Do you have a ticket already?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, go up to the check-in desk.
The check-in clerk is smiling at me.
Try speaking to the clerk.
Hi there.
Hello, sir. How can I help you today? Please excuse me, sir. I have to take this call.
Yes, I'll have to come back in a bit.
Okay, any idea what we should do?
Perhaps we should start by having a look around.
Can you not just run through security?
I have better things to be doing with my time right now.
You're a funny guy, Freddie.
I'm ready to go. What do you think we should do next?
Why don't you have a look around?
It's a check-in desk with a friendly-looking host behind it. But they are on a call at the moment.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you some idea as to what's going on, and it's kind of deliberately a bit kind of contrived situation and a bit quirky. So what did I really do here? Well, as I say, I'm not a game developer, but I thoroughly enjoyed the process, and I have managed to put together something which you can play, and which other people enjoy trying out as well, which is one mark of I think some kind of achievement. And I integrated conversational AI here, powering Freddy, and obviously we've got some natural language understanding, natural language generation going on there. So wrote the dialogue, wrote some, actually wrote a sort of dialogue manager as well, and also figured out how to play test this over Zoom, which is quite hard going because you have to receive the voice input from the person on the other end of the call and feed it into the game, and then the game responds, but you also want to hear what the player's doing, etc. So, but we had plenty of time to play with Zoom over the pandemic, so it's all good. 3 key lessons that I think I took away from this, kind of with a focus on game and sort of a bit more entertainment. The first was actually that players will almost always say something that you didn't expect, either at the beginning of the game or through the game, and this is a common challenge for many of us, I'm sure, with customers and users. But even if you just take a moment now to think what you might ask Freddy to do next or look around, there's obviously so many. So early testing, play testing, and the way I found this worked the best was to start with people that knew about the project or had played these kinds of games before, and then sort of evolve that out to people who, like my mum, for instance, who has never played this kind of game but was willing to give it a try, and started to interact and see what happened. The second was, in particular in games, dead ends kill this kind of suspension of disbelief as to the environment that you're in, the spaceport, and the fact that you can actually communicate with the character and other characters, and you've got objectives and things like that. So that's an observation, and there are still dead ends that that need resolving in truth. And the final was to obviously track what's going on, but in particular track not only review conversations and review feedback from users there and then, but also to try and track positive and negative kind of turns or interactions with the game. So if there's player friction, you sort of track that negatively. If there's player achievement, you track that positively, and then produce some graphs and some data on that so that you can try and find out where the main problems are and make improvements. So where do I take this from here? How do I make this the best it can be? Well, work with games developers that are experienced in making games, and games designers and writers. And so we've started to, with some of my colleagues back at my company in Bristol, we started to generalize this, and we're looking to create reusable game tech effectively, something that other people could start trying out and helping us to evolve. And just go back. So this will primarily consist of sort of APIs that support conversation in a game, examples and documentation, but also tooling, and I talked about analytics there, in particular, some tooling that's a bit more specific to these kinds of engagements and interactions with the game itself. And in the process, trying to, doing our best to take a strong stance on privacy and data protection and also visibility of that. So a couple of points on that. I think voice has huge potential, and we're only really at the beginning of that, voice interaction in particular with characters. And as you can imagine, it allows an almost infinite sort of expression, sharing of what's on your mind, sharing of what you want the character to do, and build relationships with characters, quite deep connections as well. And I see it therefore as being very unique and personal to the player and the relationship they have with those games. So, in my opinion, we need to. I want to try, and I think people that are using this kind of technology in a fun, creative way need to really consider how they're going to respect the privacy of players, how they're going to protect that data, and how they're going to give the players an understanding and control over that. And this kind of links back to that making technology work for people and not making those people kind of work for the benefit of the technology, if you like. It's not quite that black and white, but certainly considering the player first. And then I think there's also a consideration for the creators of this content. The data, their game worlds and their ideas and their stories and dialogue, it's obviously immensely valuable to them. It's their businesses as well. And when they're using cloud services for communication, for conversation, obviously there's a lot of data flowing there as the live game is being played. So, in my opinion, again, respecting that means working with the studio so they understand what's happening to that data, some transparency, visibility, and making sure that they understand how they can control that. So, I wanted to invite you to a summit if any of this is of interest. I think we're at the early stages of voice in gaming, but I think there's a huge amount of potential. And there hasn't been an event in the UK, at least that I could find, on this topic. So I decided to try and make one happen, and it is happening at the end of the month. And it's really about bringing together people who are working in sort of voice tech and the people who are making games, and just creating an opportunity for them to talk and share ideas a bit like we're doing here. So yeah, if you're interested in that, please do check out the website or come speak to me. Thank you is the last slide, but I can't get to it. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope that was interesting.